let's start. Okay, today is the basically beginning programming workshop. So we're going to be covering a couple of topics, mainly variables and functions today. So I'll be your host, Emil. My name is Emil Leong, right? And this is I'm currently in Sigmaschool, and basically who is Sigmaschool. So a brief history in who we are. So we are actually a top coding bootcamp in Southeast Asia. We run coding bootcamps to basically help people to transition into tech careers, and we have now successfully transitioned over 50 students that graduated our bootcamp and now are working in tech. So out of all the students, 98% of students have rated as 5-star across course report and Google. So collectively 4.87 out of 5 stars, and also 90% of total satisfaction. So everything down to like experience, coding, having the support of the teachers, and having our student events as well. So these are also some of the events that we currently have, and the one that you're in right now is one of them. So how we do it is we have 50 plus hiring partners, all the way from enterprise hiring partners that are looking for tech and people that can actually build code and actually know the fundamentals and will be able to use AI in the process as well, right? So these are some of the companies that we work with. And some of the, as you can see from our student experience and the student success, a lot of people are actually coming in from different backgrounds. So we have people, even medical students as well. So we have, right now in this call, we have like a couple biomedical students as well. So previous students, no experience at all, mechanical, electrical, coaches, medical doctors that all walks of different life with no experience came to us, we will walk them through, and now they're all working in tech companies, right? So what we like to say is anybody can learn how to code, but not everyone can be a software engineer, but everyone can learn how to code, right? Now in Sigmaschool, we have also been like sharing our journey, what we do, our entire process. We've been very open about it, and what we are actually trying to achieve, which is basically help people transition into tech that don't have no experience in tech, right? So we've also shared our journey in different press since the day we started. So late 2022 and early 23 is when we started, and we started sharing our journey as well. As you can see, Edge, BFM, Astro, Falcon Post, and so on. So now enough about Sigmaschool and who we are. So now we know that what we do and how we are able to like run coding bootcamps, and how we are actually able to teach and what we know, right? So today's workshop is going to be the very beginning. I understand that everyone is new here, no experience in coding. So we're going to be covering like the fundamentals, the very first building blocks of JavaScript, right? So today's agenda is going to be mainly variables and functions. So these two, you'll be learning what these are, or the concept, and how do you actually create code with these two concepts, variables and functions, right? So we'll be engaging with lessons, and we'll also be engaging with some challenges that I would recommend you guys, if you guys are on your computer, and you guys actually should be on your computer so that you guys can actually code along. So I'll be sending you guys some instructions, and you guys can actually try to solve the problem along with me, right? So understanding JavaScript. So the first thing you want to understand is that it is a very versatile programming language. So why are we learning JavaScript? Is because it makes websites interactive. So for example, you're joining in Google Meet. So that is actually written in JavaScript as well. And it runs directly in your browser, allowing developers, tech developers and software developers to create dynamic content, respond to your actions like the buttons you click, and enhance your experience depending on how well the website is actually built. So in layman terms, what you can see, where a lot of people say web apps is comprising of these three elements: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. JavaScript lives in there as what we call the brain. So HTML is the skeleton that actually builds, like that holds the web app in place. CSS is the skin on how it looks, whether if your button is going to be like square, round, or whatever, that is going to be determined by CSS. Now, the logic behind it, everything that functions when you click the button, basically these logical tools and sets of workflows, these are actually done within JavaScript. So you can think of JavaScript like the brain of a website. So whenever you go browse Instagram, whenever you go browse like Facebook on your desktop or laptop, that is basically JavaScript running whatever you click and responding to your commands, basically. So the first topic is going to be variables. So what is variables? So variables are basically storing data effectively by holding the data in place. So variables are like containers that you store information inside it. So you can store numbers or you can store text. It is very essential for every programming language. Any language out there uses variables, and we're going to walk through like examples of how JavaScript uses variables, right? So just to give you a perspective of how you can visualize variables is, have you ever wondered like how Instagram actually stores like how many likes, how many followers, and how many comments you guys have on your Instagram post? Now, having to like always refresh, come back in the next week to be able to see like the same exact numbers and the same exact post there, that is basically using variables. Instagram uses variables to store these information. So this is how you actually know, okay, the exact numbers, the updated likes, how do you actually see the same exact comment even after refreshing the page and stuff, right? The numbers and likes and the comments and everything, these are actually stored in what we call variables. So to visualize variables, you can think of it like a box. So as you can see here, it's basically a container, a box, whatever kind of box you want to think, up to your imagination. You're putting something inside the box. So in this case, let's say you want to store your number, your weight inside a variable called weight. So you want to store the value of your weight, right? So over here in this example, you can see how we define a variable is we'll first give it a name. So in this case, of course, we want to name it as exactly what we want to call it. So weight, and let's say you're 65 kgs. What you want to do is, or what we do is weight equals to 65. So variable weight, that is the name of the variable, and equals, basically, it tells JavaScript that you're assigning anything from the right side, you're assigning that right side value to the left side. So this means you're assigning weight, 65 kgs, to the variable weight. And to visualize it is you can draw a box, and that box, you name it weight. So it's like you put a cardboard box, you write weight on the cardboard box, and you put 65 inside that box. That's pretty much it. So that's how you visualize it, right? A box, variable is a box, and you store numbers, strings, anything inside a box. Variables. Simple, right? Makes sense? Give me a thumbs up or type 1 in the chat so that I know that everyone understands. All right, cool. Thank you. All right. So now do you understand like what is variables, right? There are 3 ways to define like variables in JavaScript specifically. So keywords are going to be const, let, and var. So today we are mainly going to be focusing on const and let. Var is what some people actually, it's sort of like depreciated, what most people actually would prefer using let. Quite similar, but we don't want to get into that too much in detail on that. So today we're learning about the 2 keywords, the most common keywords, which is const and let, right? So now we know variable, box, name, value inside the box. So let's say you're playing a game and you want to store like the points that you currently have in that game, and you scored, this example, it will be you scored 67 points, right? So how this is actually the format on how we would actually tell JavaScript this variable 67, the variable points has a value of 67, and what we do is add a const keyword. So for each variable, what type of variable it is. So in this case, const variable basically means, let's break it down into different chunks of what this line of code means. When you write it in JavaScript, in a terminal, what does it mean, right? So const, when you define const, the keyword, it is short for constant. That means, as the word describes, constant means whatever you declare in the variable, so the value you added in the box, you're not able to change it. So it's immutable. So think of it like a steel box, right? Whatever you put inside and you close that steel box, you can never be opened and it can never be changed. So anything that you put inside, it's going to be there forever, right? So if you put 67, you can't change the points to a different number value. Now, second thing is points. Now, this is basically the name and variable, right? Whatever you write on that box, that is what you call the name of the variable. Equal symbol, this is an assignment operator. Basically, it tells JavaScript, okay, you're assigning the whatever is on the right side, that value to the variable on the left, the name of the variable on the left. And 67 is basically a number value. And this parentheses here, this semicolon, sorry, it's basically an expression like in a sentence when you're writing. So I think Ramesh would know, whenever you finish a sentence and when you finish an essay, finish a sentence, you always have to add a full stop, or else people don't know when so that is basically in coding. That is what tells JavaScript, okay, this is the end of your code. So we only take in whatever is before that, which is 67, right? So let's say punctuation, that's correct. So let's say you want to add like a height, right? You are like 175. So what you do is first, you write const here, and then height, which is replacing points, and then you want to do equals, and then 175, and then you add the semicolon, right? So that is the same format of what you see here. Now that explains how you actually declare variables in JavaScript. Now that is const. Now let's show you an example of let, right? So constant, as we remember, like the word is a short form for constant, right? Const is constant. Now let is basically tells JavaScript, if you add that keyword in front of let, it basically it defines the variable that is limited to the block that is within it. So, and the main key thing that you need to remember is that let variable, when you define a variable with the keyword let, means the value can actually be mutable. What that means is that you can change the value. So it's whatever you put in that box, you can just take out the value and replace it with another value. So that is a variable that is mutable. In example, right? So over here, you can see that, okay, I have a let variable, right? Over here, let me just go down a bit. So you can see now I've defined a let, and I call this, the name of the variable is let variable, and I assign it a string. So that means I'm storing this whole phrase, I am let, in the variable. So whenever I call the code, it would actually give me, so this is how I actually call the code. If I run the code, what you can see here is basically JavaScript will know that I'm calling the variable, means it will print out whatever value. You're just basically JavaScript telling JavaScript, open the box and tell me what's inside the box. So it's telling you I am let, which is what is correct here. So in this case, if it's const, means you can change it, but because you declared this variable as a let and it's mutable, which means you can later, let's say, okay, I don't want to code, and you decide that, okay, I actually want to store let as 67, right? I save this, and let me run my code again. Let me do a clear. Right, and now it prints out 67 instead of I'm let. That's because I've updated it, and let allows me to change the value of the variable. So then the code actually knows that, okay, the last changed value for that variable is 67, the value 67. So then it prints out that value, right? Does it make sense? Does everyone understand the difference between const and let? All right, cool, nice. All right. So constant, immutable, let, you can change it, right? So now you can see, so now you know the difference between declaring variables and what is the difference between let and const, right? Now, early in the code, you can see like this same example here. You can actually see that when I type in the code, this is how I define it. This is when I change the value. But over here, this is using a totally different format, right? Console.log, and it has parentheses, and you add the name of the variable in. What console.log is, it's basically a function, and it is actually used by many developers to basically use for like debugging or testing your code. So in this case, because I want to know like what is stored inside the variable, let variable. So what I do is I tell Java to print out whatever value that I put inside this parenthesis. In this case, when I put the name of the variable, it would tell JavaScript to, okay, it will tell basically the code editor to actually print out inside the console. And you can see here the terminal output. Whenever I run this code, it will now run me whatever the variable's value is, right? So in this case, let's say if I were to define like variable 2, and I put like 99, right? And over here, I'll go add console.log variable 2, right? When I save this, right, and I run the code, what that basically means is telling, because now I have 2 console logs, so it's telling the code editor, I want you to print out in the terminal, because how the editor works is it runs the code line by line. So in this case, because console.log let variable runs first, so it will print out let variable, and then it will print out variable 2. So if I run this code, you can see it prints out 67 first, and then later 99. So console log is basically, it's for debugging. It's good for debugging, and also to know like which line of code went wrong, and you'll be able to trace it easier, right? So in this function, you can see, so it executes, when you execute, it logs the value, right? So does it make sense? Everyone understand what is? So quick recap: constant keyword means immutable variable. Let keyword means you can change the variable afterwards, right? Console.log is whenever you want to print an output or print something in the terminal, right? Make sense? If it makes sense, give me a thumbs up or type cool in the chat. All right, thank you, Mason. I'm good. Thank you, Jivanjit, Pastor. Okay, cool. All right. So now let's do some challenges. Let me go ahead and copy this link. And you guys, I want you guys to also follow along. So don't just watch me do it, but I want you guys to try and follow along and type in whatever I'm typing so that you guys get that muscle memory in as well. So I have shared a link in the chat. I want you guys to click on it. And now I'll walk you through on, so it will actually pop up and show you something totally different. So it'll bring you to a different window. What that does is it brings you to what we call StackBlitz. So StackBlitz is actually a web code editor. And when you click the link, this is what you will actually be seeing, right? If everyone's seeing the same thing, give me a thumbs up. All right, cool. Mason got it. All right, Michaela got it. Okay, so now when everyone sees this main thing, what I want you to do is, so it's totally free. You guys can create your own account. So what you do is over here on the top right, you can actually see that if you are not logged in and you don't have an account, what you do is there is a sign in button at the top, on the right side of the top screen. There should be a sign in button. I want you to actually click in, and if you want to be fast, you can actually sign in with your Google account or email. If not, you can just create an email and password and anything like that, right? So first things first, create an account and then come back to the same page. So when you guys actually see that you guys have actually logged in, you would have like a automatic icon or logo generated for your profile picture. It should be according to the name that you created, right? So go ahead and sign in and create your account. Once you have created, okay, I'll let you guys create your account. Mr. Lang, you have a question?
Yes, I am on a laptop and I'm not sure where the chat is. It doesn't seem to be showing up. I see the emoticons.
Okay. It should be on the bottom right side, the third icon from the right. There should be a chat symbol over there. And when you hover over it, it should say chat with everyone.
It's strange because I don't see it.
Let me go ahead and pin this message. Yeah, it should be on the bottom right side of your screen. If you're using you should be logging in through like a web browser, right?
I'm at Google Meets.
Okay. Right. That's weird. You don't have like a chat box. Okay, try looking through like the icon, the symbols at the bottom, and then try seeing if the three buttons, try to see if there's like a chat within those selection. It might be hidden due to like the aspect ratio of your screen. While you do that, so for the others, the rest, what I want you guys to do is actually create a duplicate of this project. So how to do that is basically you want to go over here on the top left, and you can see that there is a button over here that is fork. So what I want you to do is actually once you create an account, you signed in. Now what I want you to do is click on this button and it should load. Once it's loaded, you should have a pop-up. Basically, it'll tell you project fork, right? And how do you know you actually created a duplicate? So fork is basically what it means is creating a copy and duplicate, right? So when you go on the name, over at the very top, right? You can see that this is the name of the project. And if you've successfully created a duplicate, it should actually have a keyword behind duplicated inside the parentheses, right? So what I want you to do is go ahead and rename it. So emails project. You can rename it. If you don't want to rename it, it's totally fine. But mainly the most important thing is you actually create a copy for yourself. So this is your own project within your own profile, right? So then you can actually make all the changes that you want, right? So once that is done, then just feel free to type in the chat done, or yeah. So type in the chat once you guys are all done, okay? So to give you guys the steps, basically, oops. Okay, so quick 1 minute for those that are like signing in. So step one, sign in and create your own account, right? Use the link in the chat so that you can actually go to the project. Step two is creating a copy of the project. So you want to click the button fork, create a duplicate. You can rename the project if you want. You don't have to. Once you're done, you can type in ready in the chat so that I know everyone's ready. Cool. All right. Kevin is ready. Blaster ready. Wenyi ready. Ramesh ready. Java chat ready. Michaela, Rishika, Mason. Okay. All right, Lukman. I'm good. Ready. Emily is ready. Okay, cool. All right. So now that you guys actually created your own profile and you created a duplicate, so what you're going to do is go to open the file, and you'll be under variables right now. So make sure you're on the file named variables.js. And now we're going to do the code together, right? We're going to start challenge one together. So challenge one says you have to create a variable name and assign your name into the string, right? So how do we do that, right? So from previously, remember, we need a keyword, we need the name of the variable, we need to assign it a value. And now this challenge is telling us to assign it to our own name, so a string. So if you remember and you saw closely on how I gave you an example of what the let variable is. So in this case, let's do a let variable. So to do that, we type in let, right? Let me just hide this so you guys can see more of my code. Okay, so we type in let, right? And we want to name, because we say create a variable with the name, right? To assign it, it'll be one equal sign. And to create a string, what you want to do is you can either do, what do we call this? Crap, I need English teachers' help. What do we call this again? Quotation.
Yes.
Yeah, single quotations, or actually double quotations also work. But in this case, we can use single quotations. And in this case, my name, Emil, and that, and then semicolon. So that basically determines that I'm assigning my name into the variable called name, right? And how do we test if that works? You basically go and type in console.log parentheses, and you want to add the variable name. So you can see here, if I'm calling a variable, it would have the same color. And when I double click it, it would actually highlight everything that has the same, like the same keyword. So to test if I've actually done it correctly, I want you to go and click save. And what you can do is in the terminal down here, right? So a good way, if you have typed in a lot of code, you can just type in clear and you click enter and it clears everything away. So now to actually run whatever you see on your screen, is all you need to do is type in the same thing as I do, NODE, node, space, and whatever file you're currently on, I want you to type in the name of the file. So basically it tells JavaScript to, the node editor, the code editor, to basically run that specific file. So anything, all the code that you put in that file, it will only run whatever is in that file. So in this case, we are currently, typo again, variables.js. So NODE space variables.js. Once you're done, you click enter, and this should actually give you a result. So as you can see here, based on the code that I've just added, it would actually tell me that I've actually done it correctly, because I've already declared a variable at the top, let name equals my name, email. And then the next line, it will be console log, basically telling the code editor, I want you to print out whatever I store in this variable. And it is correct, right? So let me test it again. Let's say Jessica, right? I'm adding the name, changing the name to Jessica, and see if it actually works, right? Oh, I think I have a typo. There we go. Yeah, I did have a typo. Okay, so so as you can see, if you type the wrong name and that file doesn't exist, then there will be an error. But so you just double check if you're actually typing in. So you can see the one that I got an error is because I typed in variable.js, but our file is actually variables with an S. So that's why it's giving me an error, right? So once I type in the correct name, and then now Jessica comes up, so that means my code is actually good. So challenge 1 done, right? If everyone's done with challenge 1, give me a thumbs up, so I know that everyone has actually done. Oh, nice. Wendy, Arif, Mason. All right, cool. Cool. Nice. So let's go to challenge 2. So when we're going to challenge 2, what we do is, because it's still editing the same file, so what you want to do is basically you want to comment these guys out so that you will only see whatever code that you recently added. So because you don't want to see the code results from challenge 1, and it might get you confused. So what you do is actually go ahead and add these backslashes. So it tells JavaScript, or it tells the code editor that these are comments, and this file, the JavaScript file, would not read or run execute these codes, these lines as code, right? They'll just treat it like comments. So they will basically skip these. Now let's go ahead and start challenge 2. So challenge 2 says, first step, declare a constant variable, first name. So you have to name it this way, first name, and assign the string value to it, right? Okay, so basically your first name. So remember, constant variable, that means we need the keyword. Anyone? Anyone can type in the chat. What keyword do we need when we want to create a constant variable? Anybody? Anyone pay attention? Mason? Okay, thank you. Const, right? So, all right, thank you, Blaster. Const. So to do that, const, and because now the challenge says you want to name the variable first name, right? And you want the value to basically assign a string. In this case, what you can do is you can type in your own name to see it. So my first name would be Emil. Now the second step would be declare a constant variable last name and assign a string value to it. So another variable, constant variable. this time last name, right? And my last name is Leon, right? Okay, step 1, step 2, done, right? Now the third step is use the console log function to print a string that combines first name and last name. So we can actually ignore template intervals. You can ignore that, but the main focus would be combining first name and last name so that the string should actually read people call me first name and last name. So how do we do that, right? So now we'll actually have to combine these strings. Now you can either do it in two ways. You can either create another function that combines these two variables, or you can just do it within the console log parentheses. So I'm going to show you the first way of how to do it within the console.log parentheses. So what you want to do is console.log parentheses, because it's a string. What you can do is what you want to print out, because right now the output it wants, it should actually print this out. What it means is it wants people, oh, I spelled people wrongly, people call me, and then first name and last name. So what we want to do here, how we do that is, because we have a variable, so we'll do a add symbol, right? One add symbol, and we want to add in the name of the variable, and then what we want to do is add a space, add, and then we'll do last name. So you can see while I'm typing, it actually recognizes the variables that I've actually created, and also some other function that's in already inside. So easy way to do it is you can either tab, or you can just type out exactly on how you actually named your variable. So this is one way to do it, right? The other way is you can also do, basically you're putting this whole entire line into a separate variable and then only calling console.log, whatever the variable you started in, right? It works the same. So let me go ahead and save this. And what that would print is, let me run the code, variables.js. There we go. People call me Emil Leo. So that is how we complete challenge 2, right? So if the reason why I added, so this is how you add like variables within a string context. So let's say if the reason why I add like another space here is because the variable within this variable, string variable, it doesn't have any space in between. So in this case, if I were to remove this, right, how it would look like, it would look like this. So there's no space in between. So it's totally up to you. If you actually intend to not have any space in between the first name and last name, then that's how you do it. But if you want to have space in between, you have to do it this way, right? You basically add, you're telling each, you have to be like very meticulous and like tell the code like you have to print it with a space. And to do that, you can either add a space behind your first name, which you don't have to, or you can do it this way. Totally up to you, right? Everyone following so far? Cool.
I actually have a question.
Yep, go ahead.
So why are there plus signs in these strings? Like, like there is a plus before first name and a plus before last name.
Okay, so that is because one is a format of a string, and another is basically the name of the variable. So although the string is stored in the variable, but when you tell it, when you write it out as code, it's different. It's basically a different format. So one is you're calling the variable. Another one is you're declaring a string as a whole. So because they're different formats, you have to add a plus symbol so that it basically tells the code editor that you have, it tells JavaScript to know that, okay, once you recognize one as a string as a whole, and when you go to the variable, you want to open the box. So variables are basically boxes, right? What JavaScript does is it'll print out people call me, and then when it reaches the variable, you have to add another box. So it says, oh, what's in the box? It opens the box name, first name, and when they see what's inside the box, it's basically In this case, in what I wrote was email. So it takes out email and then it puts it behind the string. And then later on, you see, okay, you're adding a space. So you add a space, and then later on, oh, it's another box called last name. JavaScript opens up the box, what's inside the last name, and then it takes whatever is inside and puts it and combines them together. So plus is basically you're combining whatever is inside the variable. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So that are these are the challenges so far. So let's move on to now we're going on to the next topic. So everyone understands, quick recap, constant variable means a variable that you can't change. Let variable means you can actually, it's a variable that it's mutable that you can change it later on. And console.log is basically a function that tells the code editor to print it in the terminal, right? Let me go ahead and clear this. Now, let's go back to the slides and let's touch on functions. Right. Oops, too fast. Okay, so what are functions? Now we understand what variables are. Now what are functions? So function allow programmers to organize their instructions into single reusable code, right? So for example, if you want to actually create something or do math, right? You want to do addition, and you don't want to have to always add every single number manually and type in the same exact thing. If you're doing addition, it should be something repetitive, and you can actually, you don't have to write it multiple times. So functions basically help you do the same exact steps just by calling a single line, which is the name of the function. So it's just reusable chunks or reusable instructions for JavaScript. So over here, let me go ahead and comment these guys out. Okay. So over here is what I've done and created a function, right? So over here, you can see how you actually declare a function is you first have to have a keyword function. This basically, as the name tells, it tells JavaScript whatever that comes after the keyword function is going to be a function, right? So over here, you can see when the letters here highlight in yellow and you have a parentheses, it tells JavaScript this is the name of the function, right? So over here, I'm creating a function with the name number generator, right? And these curly brackets basically tells you what the organized instructions will be. So remember, functions are basically organized instructions that you can actually repeat them. So whatever is inside the curly bracket, every time you call this keyword, which is the name of the function, number generator, it executes everything that is within the curly brackets. So in this case, our number generator actually in the code, it tells you that it creates a variable num and it assigns the value 10 to that variable. And what it does, it will actually log the value into the terminal. So let's say let's save this and run this code. How does it look like in code? Oops. So over here, if I were to run this code, it would actually show 10, right? Now, because now if you remember, over here it says it basically allows you to run the code multiple times without rewriting it all over again. So say you want to print out the same number 10 multiple different times, or let's say you are doing like some math, right? So number 10, and then no, let's do this number plus 5 over here, right? And then you want to do console.log. No. Okay, so you want to do it this way. If you run the function once, it will print 15 and 10. Let's say you want to print it in sequence again, but you don't want to keep running these two lines over and over again. What you can do is you can just copy and paste, and you just call the same exact function again. So how do you call a function? Is because we already have console.log in here, so all we need to do to call a function to get the results, basically you just need to type out the name and parentheses, So over here, we're not putting any value inside it. So it's currently empty. So all you need to do is just leave it as is, and you put a semicolon. That's how you pretty much execute and tell the code editor to execute this function. So JavaScript will know, okay, let me call this function and let me run whatever's inside this block, right? So over here, I called it 4 times. What that basically does is it's going to run the same exact function or the same exact instructions 4 individual times, and you repeat the process. So as you can see, in this example, I'm outputting 2 values into the terminal for each time I run the functions. So in this case, maybe you have like some things that you want to do very complex instructions, and you don't want to do it every single time whenever you want to call the instruction. You don't want to retype everything again, and basically functions eliminate that wasted energy, or I would say easier for code reading, right? So it allows you to use reusable code, which is easier, and you don't have to retype everything again, right? So as you can see from the example, that is how you create a function, right? So to break it down in step-by-steps again, function keyword is basically the keyword that tells JavaScript, hey, this is a function. So over here in this example, I'm telling it to create a function called add. Now, previously, we didn't add any value within the parentheses, but in this case, we did add them. So add is basically the name of the function. Now, when you have a value within the parentheses, what we call them are parameters, right? They are basically variables that within the functions, they are declared to be used inside the scope. So remember, the scope means whatever the curly bracket, within the curly bracket. So when you have X and Y in this example, it's basically telling the function that you have 2 variables called X and Y, and you can use them however you want within the curly brackets, right? So that's how you declare a variable that you can use within the function. And the value that you can assign it, you can assign it as you please. So later on, you can call the function multiple times, and you can add different values to these variables, and what we call them parameters, right? So as you can see, curly bracket defines the body and the logic, the scope, right? Now, over here, you can see that it's creating a constant variable called total, and you are, okay, I think there's a typo over here. It's supposed to be a plus. Let's assume this is a plus, so it's X plus Y, right? And then it returns the variable total. So the keyword return means you're just whenever you run that function, it returns the variable. So in this case, you can return a constant value or whatever, but in this example, you're returning whatever is stored inside the variable of total. So you're returning the box named total, and when JavaScript returns that box, and when you call that box, it basically opens up the box and see what's value stored in the total, right? So over here is how you call it, and because you have return total, what this tells JavaScript is that you're assigning sum, the variable sum, to the same value of total. So what it does is basically open up the box, take the value in total, and you put it in sum, right? That's basically what JavaScript is doing. So when you call the function add, you take X and Y variable, you add them both together, put it inside the box total, and you return that box. When you call this function over here, now you're assigning the value 5 and 2. So that means inside this box, it has 5 and 2. So 5 plus 2. So the value of total, the total box, is 7, right? And in this line, it tells you that, okay, now you're declaring a variable sum. So you're opening the box, taking the value 7, and you're assigning it to the variable sum. You're putting it inside the box called sum. Does that make sense? I know there's a lot of boxes and variables and taking in and taking out, but did that make sense?
Sort of.
Sort of. Okay, let's go to some examples, and then you guys can actually see how to use it in action. All right. All right, let's do some challenges. Now I want you to go back to the same page as previously, or you can click the same link again to the challenges. That will actually bring you to this page as well. So let me go ahead and share the correct screen. Okay. Oh, here we go. Yeah. Okay. So now over here, we are at variables. What I want you to do is go to functions. So you can ignore the other different files for now, right? So we want to start off with the fundamentals first, so you can ignore them and we focus on what we've learned, right? Variables and functions. So you want to go to the file name functions. What I can do is I will share this to you guys again for those that can find it. Right, so I typed in the chat. When you open it, it will bring you to a different project. But I want you to do is you can either fork it. The easiest way is to go back to the project that you've created and go to the file name functions. Right, that will be the easiest way. So you don't have to like create multiple different copies of it. Right. So now let's start with challenge 1. Right. So now we understand variables. We understand what functions are. Functions are basically code that you can actually use multiple times whenever you call the name. So how do you actually see that, right? Create a function. So challenge 1, step 1, create a function named triple that accepts a number and returns the number multiplied by 3. So as the name suggests, basically the logic that you store inside that function is going to be taking a number and multiplying that by 3, right? So triple. So when you multiply that by 3, basically function, the declare function is keyword function. And now we have to name our function triple. So you have to have parentheses. Now, because as the previous example, we showed that if you want to accept variables and declare them as parameters, we would have to declare a name for that variable. So you can do X or you can do number or anything like that. Let's do number for now to be accepted as a parameter in this function. Now, every function will need curly brackets. So we have to do curly brackets like this. And then you can create a space. So it's totally up to you. This is going to be formatting whether you want to do it this way or do you prefer to be this way. Totally up to you, right? Triple. And now inside this, within the curly brackets, what you want to put in is the logic. So it has to return the number multiplied by 3. So this number is the variable. So it has, so there are 2 methods again. You can either store the number multiplied by 3 and then return that variable, or you can just return inline. What that means is you can either do it this way. Multiply is, okay, so the symbol for multiply is the star symbol. That it's basically telling JavaScript that I want you to multiply left, whatever is on the left and the right. Right. So in this case, I want to multiply that by 3. So you can either do it this way, that's the same, or you can also do it like previously. You can create a let results. Let's call this result. And then you do num, multiply that by 3, and then you can return the result. Right. This works as well. Totally fine. You want to save that. Now we have our function done. That's step 1. Now step 2 is create a variable triple and assign it the results after calling the function triple function with argument 3. Okay, what that whole sentence means is going to be this. You want to call that function and you want to assign the return value to a variable called triple, right? So to do that, let's do let. Okay, let's do const instead. And then because now we need to assign it to the variable triple. So what we're going to do is equals, and we created this function. So we're going to type in triple. And now over here, it says you want to add in the argument 3. So basically, you want to type in 3 over here. This tells that you are calling this function, and the number over here, you are replacing it with the value 3, right? So let me go ahead and save that. Now use console. Step 3 will be using console log to output the value of triple and run the code. Okay, so basically just returning whatever you've stored in triple to double check if you actually got it correct, right? So following this logic, if everyone's following, right, what I wrote was I created a function called triple. I have a parameter that accepts a variable. And within the logic of my function, what I do every time I call this function is I'm taking this number, I'm multiplying that by 3, and then I'm turning the results after the multiplication, right? And in this case, after I multiplied the value 3, I'm assigning the value, the result value, to a variable called triple. And then I'm calling the code editor to pretty much print the result to the terminal, right? Does that make sense? Is everyone clear? Everyone followed along? Right? Give me a thumbs up. Blaster, confused face. If you have any questions, okay, Ramesh, Winnie, good. Okay, Lukman, good. Ramesh, not Ramesh, I think that was Blaster. You were confused earlier. So you can type in the chat what you were confused about, or you can unmute if you want. But basically, in repeat is function triple. Triple is whatever value you put in the parentheses. And now is you're printing out the value, right? So over here, what would be my code result? No, I'm in the, remember, I'm in the file called functions with an s.js. When I run the code, what do you guys think my result will be? Type it in the chat. What do you guys think my result will be? Lukman says 9. Are you sure, Lukman? Mason's also said 9. Are you sure, Mason? Are you 100% sure? Yes. So I'm actually not sure because I haven't run my code, but let's see. So it says 9. That's correct, right? So what that basically does is 3 times 3 is 9, and now you're assigning here and you called it here. Or you can actually do it this way as well. So let's say triple 2, and then you want to call this 5. So this is actually the beauty of functions, right? Right, and then what you want to do is also, so you can do 2, 3. Or if you want to do like a shortcut, you can actually do it this way. Change. Oops. There we go. Now let's run my code again. So you don't need these 2 lines, because that saves lines of code. And although it's not that readable, but you're basically calling that function without assigning a variable to it. So in this case, you're actually saving some memory, very small amount of memory, not negligible memory, but in this case, you're actually just saving effort. It's totally up to you, but you can do it different ways. So this is the beauty of like functions. So you can call and add in like what do you call it, different values to this function, and it basically prints out after it goes to the same exact logic without me having to type out 5 times 3, print that value out, right? So it automatically does that. So I've typed in 3 over here. For the first one, you can see the output variable is 9, right? The value is 9. For the second console log, it's triple, but this time it's going to be value of 5. So 15, right? 5 times 3, 15. So 9, for the third one, it's 9 times 3, 27. So it prints this out. So you can see the concept, right? If your code gets complex, now this is simple math, but let's say you're doing something really complex. you're doing authentication, or you're doing like cross-check, you're doing, yeah, basically imagine like very complex code, then this is where functions will help you resolve like redundancy of like writing the same exact functions. So you write it once, but you can use it multiple times, but without like having to write huge chunks of code again that has already been written, right? So you can see also why naming convention is going to be very important. So you can tell that, okay, whenever I call this the name of the function triple, that means you'll know what you're actually doing within that, right? So I think our time is almost up. Let me go back to the slides, right? So everyone learning something so far? Functions and variables. Cool. Ramesh is learning. All right, Mason has a question. Can you use actual numbers instead of parentheses as the argument? What do you mean? Okay, so for parameters, when you do this, what you want to do is you want to make it as modular as possible, right? So for example, if I were to declare like a number here, that wouldn't work, right? So you can see here, it doesn't accept. So it has to accept a variable in here. So a name or a symbol, basically. So you can tell it do this. And this is going to be a good practice, because if you fix a value, for example, if you fix a value here, it doesn't work that way, right? You have to assign it a variable. Yeah. So it's where it makes it modular. So this is where it allows the code to actually assign, you are assigning the variable only when you call the function. So it gives it that flexibility and the reusability, because if you're always assigning the same value, then there's not much point of actually calling that function, or the function will only have one purpose, right? You always have the same output, essentially. So if you have if you're going to assign a value and you know that the value is always going to be the same, you don't have to add it as a parameter. What you can do is you can just assign the value here. So if you know that you're always going to multiply 3 by 3 with 3, triplet. Yeah, if you know you're always going to have the value 3 multiplied by 3, you assign it within it and you don't add it as a parameter, because then it defeats the purpose of having function, right? The whole point of a function is you want it to be as modular as possible so you can use it repetitively. Does it make sense? Right, thank you so much. Engaging. Are you going to get the recording? So for Ramesh, yes, you are going to get the recording. This is, we'll be sending it to you guys at the end of the event. So you guys will receive an email basically, right? And can this function transform a CSV file? So it depends on like what you actually, so you would actually have to create more complexity in that one to be able to accept Excel files. Yes, you can basically. I must leave now. I'll catch you later. Okay, see you later, Ramesh. Thank you so much. Are we gonna? Yes, you are gonna get the recording. So okay, let me share correct screen again. All right. There are 2 guesses coming in. Give me 1 second. Let me admit them in. All right. So let's go back to the slides. Why there's no parameter besides the triple? Yeah. Okay. So to answer that, that was because of Mason's question on why you don't add the actual numbers inside the as a parameter. Because if you add actual numbers inside, it's pretty much redundant, and we don't do that. You can only add variables within the parameter, within as a parameter within the parentheses. Yeah. So this is just an example to show that if you know you're going to have like a value and it's always going to be 3 times 3, then you might as well just put it in line and you don't have to declare it, right? But that also limits the reusability of that particular function, right? Hope that makes sense. All right. Okay. So that is basically variables and functions, right? Everyone make sense? Not necessarily put a parameter then. Yes, it's not necessarily you have to put a parameter. So I've shown you a couple of examples. So over here, a couple of examples is that, so you can see here, this example here shows you that you have a parameter, and because it depends on how complex and how you want to structure your function, you can do that. So it's really going to be up to you on what you have to ask yourself, what is the purpose of this function? And then if it needs a parameter or not, right? If it's going to be taking in some value to be able to do or run the same exact functionality that you stored it inside, then I would say you need a parameter. If you're always going to take in different values, right? If you don't, if it's going to be something that you do continuously, for example, in this example, it's going to be like a number generator, then you're always going to be generating the same number, right? Or let's say, actually, in this case, number generator is not the best name, but let's say if you're going to be generating the same number, then you don't need to add a parameter. So it's optional. It really depends on what use case you want that function to give you, right? Does that make sense? All right, so that is pretty much the workshop. Now you guys have already learned variables, you have already learned functions. Now, what you can do next is you can either first, you can actually, so we'll be running these kind of like workshops, introducing like new concepts to beginners on how you can actually break into and understand JavaScript. So you can either RSVP for our next events where we'll walk you through new concepts every week, where you can actually, I'll share the link below. Now, if you're interested as well, you guys can also check out, and if you guys are, or you want a more challenge, then you guys can actually check out our free coding starter pack, right? This is where, so I shared the links in the chat so you guys can take a look at it. So the second thing you can do, besides going to our free events, is going to be testing out and trying out our free coding starter pack. So this is where inside you have a roadmap created for you, where you're basically going to answer a quiz to tell us, okay, what kind of techie you're going to be. Are you more of like a back end? Are you more of a front end? What kind of like, do you like data? Do you like, yeah. So basically answering these questions will basically give you us an understanding and give you an understanding of like what kind of techie you're actually, based on your character, based on your qualities, which one are you much more suited for, right? And there will be 6 projects in 6 days that you can actually complete. So these are actually simple projects, but still web applications that you build by yourself. So in that starter pack, you guys can go ahead and click the link, right? Let me go ahead and pin this. Yep. So you guys can click that coding starter pack. All you need to do is just fill in your name, email, and phone number, and then we'll send it to you via email. Basically, we'll verify and then be able to know that if that's you, we will send it to you, and you guys can just click in it, get access to the starter pack, right? Completely free. Now, for those that find that, okay, you've really learned JavaScript, you really learned the basics, and you want to take it to the next level, when you decided that this is something that you really want to pursue, and you want to see that, okay, I want to actually make this a career, I want to gain this skill set, to be able to actually become a developer in this age of AI, especially, what you need to do and what you need to stand out and become like irreplaceable in the age of AI, especially developer. What we teach in is called the Immersive Cohort Bootcamp. So basically, this is basically going to take you to the next level. And the goal here is what we do is we will help people to transition into a different career and also gain the skill sets to be able to get them as a developer, right? Basically learning the fundamentals, have domain knowledge, and also integrate AI into all the workflows and being able to build apps by yourself, even with AI as well. So that, if you're interested to be able to, but you have to be focused and you have to be actually ready and show interest, because we don't take everyone in. So we will do like a admissions and vetting process to see if this is something that is suitable for you. And if you're eligible, then we'll only accept students like that, right? So you can go ahead and check it out. Our admissions team will actually go through and see if you're a good fit, then we'll let you in, right? Now, so these are the different steps that you can do after this bootcamp if you want to learn more about like coding, right? So the free workshops, you can sign up, which happens every Wednesday. Then do check out our link on events. coding starter pack where you guys can get started with like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, building 6 projects in 6 days, having a roadmap and a quiz to basically know what kind of techie you are, and also immersive bootcamp if you guys are the ones that are like serious and ready to take it to next level. Right? As I said, we run these on a weekly basis. So if you guys are interested to learn like the fundamentals again on new topics, then you guys can go ahead and check out and sign up RSVP for our next event, right? So what you guys can do after this as well is you guys can give us a feedback, basically give me a feedback to know whether I did a good job today, whether if you can be honest, right? You can let me know like, okay, Emil, you suck, like you explained really badly or anything like that, right? So either you can scan this QR to give us feedback, or you can click the link. So I have shared like a couple of the links here. The fourth one is going to be our feedback link. So you guys can go ahead and fill those up and then provide your most candid feedback, most honest feedback. That way we know like our future events, whenever you join, we're able to like accommodate and answer any of your questions that you might have, and make sure that you guys are actually learning and getting value out of these events. Cool. All right. All right, it's actually 8:41, so we are actually over 11 minutes. All right. All right, anyone else? Anyone has any questions that they have? It can be the topics that we've actually covered in this workshop or anything. It's basically open for the floor if anyone has any questions. Questions? On variables, on functions? No? Yes? Blaster gave me a thumbs up. Leonhard gave me a thumbs up. Okay, no questions. Anyone else? Loshini gave me a thumbs up. Lukman gave me a thumbs up. Cool. Everything good? Okay, Royce, Kayla, Mason. Nice. All right. With no questions, then you guys are, this is the end of the workshop. So for those that don't have any questions, you guys are free to leave. And if no one has any more questions, I'll probably be ending in a couple of seconds. All right. If you guys do have any questions, feel free to first email us or WhatsApp us as well. So you can actually get our WhatsApp on our website, and then we'll be able to reach out to you. Yeah. So we can answer any of your questions on like the workshop or anything like that. Cool. So in terms of recordings, we do post these on our YouTube. So it's basically open to public, so don't worry about that. We will also send you the links to the playlist, so you guys will have access to it, and also the links to like our next events as well. Cool. All right. All right. Thanks a lot for this session, Javon Chad. Okay. Thank you. All right. I hope you guys learn like remember what variables are and what functions are. Right. Cool. Happy to help. All right. All right. Loshini says thank you, Emil. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Michaela says thank you. Happy to help. Rishika, thank you. Rizu, thank you. Benja came late, had a class. Hopefully I attend the next one. Yep. So don't worry, we do run these on a weekly basis with different topics. So if you want to join in, we run them at the same time. So you can actually go to our website. You can go /sigmaschool.co/events, and this is where you can actually see what our next event. So we actually have one next week. We'll be covering conditionals, right? Lukman says thank you, no problem. Leonhard says thank you. Blaster says thank you, no problem. Hope you guys had value. All right. Let me go ahead and okay. So Benja, you can actually go ahead to the first link. So the first one that I sent just now is the link. You can actually click on it, and then you can actually see like when is our next event. You can sign up for that one. So that one's going to be a different topic from today. That one's going to be covering conditionals, and you'll be able to pretty much the same format. We will give you explain what are conditionals and like provide challenges, and so there'll be hands-on programming. So for next one, you do prepare to be on your laptop or computer so that you can actually code along as well.